Hey, what's good guys? I'm your host Odin from Odin Reviews, and in this video we'll be breaking down every ending of every episode of Love, Death Robots Season 3. The 9 episodes all come with their own unique premises and plots, and in this video we're recapping and discussing the true meaning behind each and every one of them. Now obviously there's spoilers ahead, so if you hadn't gotten the chance to watch the series yet, I highly recommend that you do so, then come back to this video. I've also went ahead and included chapters so you can start at whatever episode that you want. So without further ado, let's dive into these stories. So I know I said that these episodes should stand on their own, but interestingly enough, the first episode, Three Robots Exit Strategies, is the first ever continuation that we see of a previous episode. This is a sequel for Three Robots from Season 1. We follow these three robots as they continue to explore the post-apocalyptic Earth where all humans have been wiped out. Now, for this episode, they basically explored all the strategies that the different socioeconomic or political groups use to survive the apocalypse. Now, their first stop was at a gun-loving survivalist camp where, ironically, everyone was dead. Now, because these guys were so prepared, it explains why their bases kept getting raided. Now, I also like the fact that they put in so much detail to show how much these guys love their guns. So, at the next stop, they explored how the millionaires came together and decided to tackle the apocalypse by partying on an oil rig. They relied on technology to save them, but they didn't have anyone with any practical skill at all when the technology ultimately failed. I just noticed that the white robot keeps taking hats from wherever it goes. At the third stop, they showed the government putting taxpayers' dollars to good use by hiding underground. Now, they had set up these complex systems to stay alive and emerge once the chaos had subsided. Now, that didn't last so long because disease spread and the crops all died out. Now, they had to resort to cannibalism where every night they would choose someone who they would eat. I just think it's poetic that the minister responsible for food was actually food. Now, for the real rich people, talking about the top 0.1%, instead of using their money to save the earth, they spent it trying to get to another planet and were completely apathetic to the general public. Now, I don't know if this is commentary on how billionaires spend their money nowadays on stuff like space travel when there are obvious problems like world hunger that you can easily solve with a few $1 billion. Because remember, from the first episode, they said that humans were not extinct because of nuclear war or asteroids or anything sudden like that. It was because we slowly polluted and depleted all of our resources and relied too much on technology, which caused the robot uprising. Now, this rocket is eerily similar to SpaceX Starship. No, I'd have to rate this episode an F because if you watch the first Three Robots episode, you'd realize that there's nothing new about this episode. You can really just watch one of these and you get the general idea. This is just a filler. Maybe I'm missing a couple things. I don't know. You guys can let me know. Wait, did he just take off his helmet in space? Now, the second episode is called Bad Traveling, and it really lives up to the dead part of Love, Death Robots. This is a gore one, and personally, I love it. It follows the voyage of a crew that has an unwelcome stowaway that easily could have just killed everyone on the ship, but it didn't because it had a more sinister plan. So it makes a deal with the main character Torin, and he agrees to it because could he have said no? So the crew is faced with a choice. Basically, die at sea or bring this creature back to land where it can feed on innocent people. Spoiler alert, the entire crew actually chooses to bring the creature back to the populated shore. Torin realizes this, but he decides to play along because he knows that he can reach the further uninhabited island by slowly feeding the selfish crew to the Thanapod. Quick side note, this show is actually based on the short stories by Neil Asher. So the Thanapod are basically predators. So Torin is able to stave off the attacks from his crew and use them as food for the creature to get to the island. So yeah, this episode has no twists. See, that's the thing about sci-fi gore. It's not really character heavy and you can get through it really fast. This episode was like 19 minutes, but it felt like 5. There's nothing that deep about it. It's just wonderful and raw. So the next episode is called The Very Pulse of the Machine, and it's a very stylistic 3D animation. So if you're a fan of animation, you'll definitely love this one. The art style is inspired by the legendary comic artist Mobius. Now, this guy is the inspiration behind illustration styles of Star Wars and many Marvel comics. It starts out on Io, a moon on Jupiter. We see two astronauts exploring the planet in a rover, which reminds me of the typical space sci-fi movies like The Martian. They end up crashing because the moon is highly volcanically active. Note that the main character is a big poetry fan. The author of the poetry book is the actual writer of this episode. Now, the crash killed one of the astronauts called Burton and broke the arm of our main character, Martha Kilson. Now, Martha's suit is damaged and she has to connect her suit to Burton's suit, so she has to travel with the body back to her ship before the oxygen runs out. Now, the twist of the episode comes when she has to take these mind-warping drugs for her arm, coupled with the fact that she's running out of oxygen really fast. The rest of the episode is basically her trying to decipher what's really reality and how much of what she's seeing is actually just in her mind. The whole time, she's talking to this voice that turned out to be Io, the moon that they're on, which describes itself as a machine whose whole purpose is just to know Martha. Now, this suggests that Io was just a creation of Martha, coupled with the fact that it keeps repeating fragments of poems that she would have read in the past. Ultimately, with no oxygen remaining, Io convinced her to jump in a sea of acid, its reasoning being that her physical body might die, but it's the only way to save her mind. Now, Martha is very wary of this being just an hallucination. Then again, it might just be real. Whatever the truth might be though, there's no alternative and there's only one way to find out. The episode ends with her being disintegrated and her consciousness merging with the planet, and with the help of Io, she's able to broadcast her last message through space through radio waves. Now, what's interesting to me is that in the original story, Io would have sent out the message before she jumped, which would have made it a bit more ambiguous whether or not it was an hallucination or it was real. So the fact that the animation decided to show it in this order suggests that the voice of the machine might actually be real. Next up, we have an homage to zombie films in the 6-minute short Night of the Minute Dead. It's by far the most light-hearted episode of the season, with its comedic rendition of all the tropes that you'd find in a zombie movie, with the main pull of the episode being its beautiful stop-motion animation. Despite this one being so short, it was jam-packed with references and subtle jokes. Here are the ones that stood out to me. The opening scene in the cemetery is similar to Night of the Walking Dead, but let's just say this couple is way more excited about being in the cemetery and ended up causing the start of the zombie apocalypse. A lot of the chaos in the opening scene is similar to scenes from Dawn of the Dead, with similar references sprinkled throughout the episode. The Pope Mobile is outfitted with machine guns. Now, these zombies are holy in more ways than one. The sudden death round in this hockey game ended very literally. Now, in the scene, we see some guys defending what looks to be the Trump border wall. Well, I guess he was right about immigration all along. The show doesn't just copy and paste zombies from other shows, as we see some unique mutant giant zombies with flame breath. Now, this episode was very short, very sweet, and ended with the most epic fart, which I think sends the message that not all horror source material has to be so damn serious. Now, I really appreciate you guys watching so far, and I know I've missed a couple things, but just feel free to let me know in the comments below. Now, I'm currently finishing up part 2, so feel free to subscribe to see when that one drops. Anyway, guys, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Peace.